Well, this morning for this church leader tool, I am very, very excited to introduce and to interview Candy Maxwell. Candy has agreed to serve for our synod as the Lay Leadership Development Director, and she is just a great person. I know you're going to enjoy this interview. Candy, it's great to have you as part of a church leader tool.
Thank you, Stuart. Great to be with you.
So, Candy, I think the first question is, how did you end up as the Lay Leadership Development Director, a non-stipend position for the Synod? Kind of what's your background? How did you end up in this position?
Well, I recently retired after about a 30-plus year career in healthcare and policy and strategy. And during that time, I served as a leader in several organizations and also founded and led 2 companies of my own. And recently I moved to Wilmington, Delaware, with my husband, Scott Maxwell, who serves as pastor of St. Mark's Lutheran Church. And I might say we're thrilled to be here, to be a part of the St. Mark's community, to be part of the Delaware-Maryland Synod, and to be close to our daughter and her family, including our new granddaughter. But shortly after I arrived, I had an opportunity to meet with John Auger, who's our Synod Vice President. And then after that, we met on several additional occasions, ended up spending a lot of time talking about my experience as a leader, my interest in developing leaders, and my passion for developing lay leaders in the church. And so John, being the leader that he is, identified this role as Lay Leadership Development Director, and along with the Synod Council, asked me to serve in this capacity. And I happily and gratefully accepted the challenge. So that's why I'm here today.
Awesome. And we are very grateful to have you in this role. So one of the first questions I think that would really get us started is, how do you define leadership? How do you describe it?
Well, and I'm sure you know this from your own background in research, there's lots of definitions out there with respect to leadership. And one, though, that really resonated with me and with my own experience was in an article I read out of Forbes magazine several years ago. And it defines leadership as a process of social influence, if you will, which maximizes the efforts of others towards the achievement of a goal. And I like that definition for several reasons. First of all, it stems from influence and the leader's ability to influence rather than from authority or power or a title or role. It also focuses on the relationship between the leader and those being led. And I think so importantly, leadership is fundamentally about relationship. It also reaches beyond the effort to organize others and their efforts to one of maximizing their efforts. And it includes a goal or an intended outcome, and it's not dependent on personality traits or attributes. There's many styles of leadership. There's many paths to effective leadership, and all of those are valid and valuable in terms of leadership. In the end, I think what's most important about this definition is it recognizes the point that managers manage things and leaders lead people. And as I said before, it's fundamentally about relationships. And I think about this from the standpoint of kind of having a reciprocal understanding of leadership. And what I mean by that is that leaders shape those they lead, clearly, but also leaders are shaped by those they lead. And leadership can only be understood in terms of the leader in relationship to those being led. So there's very much a sense of mutuality and partnership and everyone going towards a common vision, a common commitment, a common motivation.
It's a very deep definition. I like it. Lots to think about there. So to dive then deeper into leadership in particular, for you, what are like the essential elements of an effective leader, and maybe specifically in our context, an effective Christian leader?
Yeah, there's quite a bit written on this, and I had an opportunity when I first agreed to take on this role to step back and think about from my own experience what made an effective leader, and experience in the church what made an effective Christian leader, and I think for me it boils down to perhaps four key ingredients, and I kind of refer to these as the 4 C's. There's been some literature that refers to other C's, other 4 C's, but these are mine that I think really capture the essence of effective Christian leadership, and they include character, conviction, competency, and what I'll call convergence, which I'll explain a little bit more in just a minute. But just to touch on these, and then maybe I'll take a little bit deeper dive into each one. When I'm talking about character, I'm talking about the effective Christian leader generating trust on the part of their followers. When we talk about conviction helps others to embrace purpose, and it's that conviction that the leader conveys that helps to lead to that embracing of purpose. Then there's competency, which helps an organization, and in this case a congregation, function as a healthy community. And then finally this concept of convergence, which is really the right place at the right time, the coming together of a leader, a congregation, time, place, ministry opportunity, and the resources to realize God's purposes. So maybe I could step back and look at each one of these in a little bit more detail. When you think about character, when I think of the Christian leader, I'm thinking about the character of Christ in the Christian leader. And what I mean by that is, one, an individual that's living a life of close relationship with God through prayer, an individual that's empowered by God through trust, an individual that has compassion towards others through relationship and through service, and an individual that is rooted in God through God's Word. And so all of those elements, I think, really make up the character of an effective Christian leadership. And not surprisingly, leadership, and effective Christian leadership, I think, is an integral element of discipleship formation generally. And at the same time, life experiences form leaders. And I would include, importantly, in those experiences, our own faith journey, and all that makes us who we are as followers of Christ. And then finally, there's an element of emotional intelligence, a sense of self-awareness, social awareness, an ability to manage relationships, and an ability to manage yourself and to behave as a leader. I think on the conviction side, the second of our C's, effective Christian leaders believe certain things deeply, and we know that. We can see that in them. They commit themselves selflessly. They are shaped by the biblical vision of God's kingdom and the church's mission, and they possess a conviction that arises out of their relationship with God through Christ. So again, there is this deep sense of conviction that you experience when you're in the presence of an effective Christian leader. And then we have competency, which I think this tends to be skills that can be learned, and that are not necessarily unique to Christian leaders, but are very important for Christian leader formation. Examples of this are things like listening and encouraging, the dynamics and processes of change, the elements of conflict and of resolution, how to engage in win-win problem solving. We could go on, and actually many of the church leader tools that Stuart, you put forth help tremendously in building many of these competencies, and are important in the formation of an effective Christian leader. And then finally, we have this concept of convergence, and I kind of think of this as a concept where Christian leadership is exercised in a particular time and place, and it's the right time and the right place. And oftentimes these experiences are unique and they're not necessarily repeatable. So Christian leaders humbly acknowledge that they're in the right place at the right time. And it's not a matter of easy formulas or steps, but it's really a matter of gift and of grace and of surprise. And so I think the role of convergence, as I've described it here, is critical. It helps to keep leaders humble. It helps to keep them flexible. And also, and you may have experienced this as well, it explains why the same person is not necessarily equally effective in all situations. And I know I've experienced that in my own walk in leadership and in walking with other leaders. And I think that finally, in addition to these 4 elements of effective Christian leadership, we might need to say just a word about leadership essence versus style. And the essence of Christian leadership is the same in all times and in all places. It's embodying unchanging values, unchanging beliefs. And at the same time, the style of Christian leadership varies greatly. I mean, we've got folks that have more of a coach type orientation, a visionary, a democratic leader, a pace setter, a commanding leader. We have all different types of leaders and all different ways to refer to leadership styles. But the style can vary greatly depending upon the individual and the situation. And importantly, well-developed leaders, they can exercise different styles in different situations. And I think to embrace that, to understand it, and consider it as gift and to use it as gift is an important element of effective Christian leadership. So that's kind of my take on effective Christian leaders based on my own personal experience, as well as what others have said and written about Christian leadership. And this working definition, this set of effective elements really serves as the basis upon which we hope to help congregations develop effective Christian leaders in the future.
Wow, deep stuff. Excellent. I was definitely enjoying that, and it, even as you were talking, the little wheels in my brain were spinning rapidly away. So, Candy, I definitely look forward to hearing more of this. I should probably put a plug that you and I are leading a workshop at the Synod Assembly this year, where you're going to share some more on this, as will I, and I definitely look forward to that, and also just how your new ministry with our Synod will unfold.
Well, thank you, Stuart. It's been a real pleasure to speak with you.
Thank you.